Hey, greetings, great agent Steve Schleter with Never Ending Referrals. Hey, we are in the fifth video in our series on winterizing your business for success. And today we get all into that conversation around um, should I wait? Is the market going to crash? And we're going to talk about something called the safe zone today and how we can use data, statistics in our markets to help make the case that, hey, it's okay. It's a safe time to be in real estate. And of course, we've already dealt with the interest rate concerns in one of the previous videos. We've talked about some opportunities of the market with maybe choices or concessions. And so right now, we know we have a very confused consumer. It's our job to be the guide. I introduced you in our last segment to the consumer guide that we've developed for my agents in my San Antonio and my northern suburb markets of Austin and Williamson County. And with all this in mind, we're going to go through, okay, how do we make the case for it's safe? Now, by the way, if it's not in your market, if for some reason you're in a weird market, don't frame things different than they actually are, of course. And yet remember that Chinese symbol for crisis. The first symbol is danger. The second symbol is opportunity. And no matter where our markets are today, there is opportunity in the market. And our job is to put it in front of people through our message and and then to make offers so that we get to kitchen tables so we can explain the opportunity. So now I'm having the opportunity to sit at a kitchen table. The question comes up, are we overvalued? And let's go how we can make that case and how we've been making the case in our markets when it comes up, because we believe we are entirely in a safe place to make that investment. And let's share how we make that conversation come true. And by the way, don't forget about using media resources. Where are those articles that you can use to support your position so it's not just your opinion. Here was one at siliconvalley.com looking for for a housing price crash. That's unlikely, real estate economist says. And of course, where I find a lot of these things, I subscribe to the business journals all over the country. For one, Apple News is where this came from. And of course, my feed's been conditioned, to give me things on the economy, the real estate economy, and so forth. And so that becomes a good resource for me to find these supporting articles, things that I can share with the consumer. Now, let's dive in a little further. I'm going to go to the consumer guide again. And let me go full screen on this. And we're going to, and again, we've built this for our agents in my northern suburbs, Austin. We serve the entire Austin market up there. And happy to connect you with a great agent. And then our San Antonio housing market. So we call it our window of opportunity guide, where we're going to take people through the opportunity of the market. Now, let's dive into some of the pages we already covered. In our San Antonio market, when we start thinking about safe zone, part of the factor is this a place that people are migrating to, or is it a place that people are migrating from? And of course, in the case of San Antonio as well as Austin, high end migration. This is places people are moving to. San Antonio, numerically, the biggest growth of an actual individual city. One of our suburbs, 8.3%. In our Austin, Williamson County markets, those are Georgetown and Leander amongst the top two in growth. So we can make the case, number one, that part of the safety of being in the safe zone is you're in a place that is desirable and people are moving to. So that's part of the case. We went through these earlier here in Williamson County. We made the case already, and we demonstrated that the market already gave back 19.6% from its peak to trough. And that was predicted by economists to be 20 to 25% give back. Well, we haven't gone back further. We've started to reclaim some of that ground, and we don't have skyrocketing inventory. We have normal inventory. So that all feels pretty safe. So we're part of building the case. Same in our San Antonio market. We have supply levels comparable to pre-COVID. We gave back roughly 10% from peak to trough and has since recovered further. And so that being the case, the next part of the conversation that I can dial into this, and of course, remember we have this way we represent it. We put this into some of the emails that we develop, and the concession opportunity that's there today that wasn't there in the past makes this a real opportune time. So we can start to combine some of our messages of opportunity in the market, as we also can do here. And yet, let's go to this page in our consulting guide. So the question is, are we overvalued? And we want to address that head on in the conversation. And this particular one would be for San Antonio. And I'm going to show you how we would address the one in Austin as well, in my Austin, Williamson County markets. So here, and of course, this is available. You can go download these slides, this graphic that we have right in here, from Gary Keller's market update from MegaCamp. Go to resources, MyKW, go to resources or education and search market update, and you'll find all those slides. And so in this case, let's address what we're saying here. Are we overvalued? And we go ahead in the bottom say, this is a difficult question to answer with certainty. We never want to be absolute. There's no crystal ball. Crazy things can happen in the world, in the economy, a pandemic, right? Didn't see it coming. And as you can, so we're going to say it's difficult to answer with certainty. And yet, as you can see from the graph above, San Antonio is well below the national median home price for 2022. Our current median price of right now today, as I sit here record this in October, is $320,000, October of 2023. It is also well below the long-term 4% appreciation trend of $357,000. So when we look at the national median projected to be 382, San Antonio, fast-growing, high-demand city, is 320. And the long-term 4% appreciation national trend would ideally say national price ought to be 357. We're well below that at 320, is the case that I'm making here. And by the way, the national trend is only 7% above the trend line, when we go back over history. And I want to talk about that in a minute. We continue in the guide, say San Antonio is the fastest growing city in the U.S. by numeric population. I can go back and make that case. I've got the evidence in the census data. The low cost of living, stable job market, good weather, rich culture make San Antonio an attractive place to live. It would be reasonable. So here's the thing. We're going to let them make their own decision. And yet we're going to say it would be reasonable to believe that San Antonio may continue to move towards the national trend line shown in teal, given the current migration trends and undersupply of housing. So meaning we have room to come up to the national trend line, which we are significantly below. And then when we think about it, feels like as we went through COVID, housing prices did this massive skyrocket, certainly not sustainable in any way. And yet, well, and the way is this. If the national trend line says we should be at 357, and nationally we're at 380, 382, that's only 7% above trend. Now, it feels like we would be much higher, given how much appreciation occurred, let me go back, in just the last 3 years. And yet what you notice when we came out of the Great Recession, we didn't get back to the trend line until 2021. And so part of that can be back to that demographic. The millennial wasn't really, that big population of the millennials wasn't coming into their housing purchasing years yet. Now they're starting to. And so more pressure on demand. And of course, we had the underdevelopment of housing, post the Great Recession, when, we were recovering from that and not enough homes were being built. And so all of that combined allowed us to catch up to the trend line, get past it. And at 4% annual appreciation, it only takes 2 years to make up the 7%. And so it's easy to hypothesize in San Antonio that we may actually be moving towards the national trend, given the high amount of in-migration that we're experiencing. Well, let's look at a different market, though. Let's look at the Austin market. And the comment we make here, using essentially the same graph, and went back and say, it's a difficult question to answer. Are we overvalued? As you can see from our graph above, the national median home price for 2022 was $386. Our median price bottomed at $410 in February, which is 5.9% above the national median price posted in December, and 17% above the 4% annual appreciation trend line for year-end 2022. Now, I'm calling it out. Austin's above the trend line by 17%, and yet, it would feel to many, because it went up so much so fast, that it's probably more than that, and it's not. And we can make the case here that Williamson County also is one of the fastest growing counties in the U.S. Our stable expanding job market, good weather, all the same things as San Antonio. And we make the comment, it would be reasonable to conclude that these factors, along with migration trends and tight housing supply, will cause the median home price to track higher than the national average well into the future. Now, keep in mind that a national average is an average of the whole nation. And when you have one of the hottest places to be in the world, or in the country, in the Austin, Texas metropolitan area, it's reasonable to say that it's going to be on the higher side of average over time. Average is an average of, those that are higher and lower make an average, and it's reasonable to suspect that Austin's going to be above average. And yet it's only 17% above the trend line. And everything we looked at earlier is showing stability in the housing market, not instability. It's already given back 20%, much of what economists had predicted. So to put a bow tie on this segment, let me just go back to my screen for a moment, and we will wrap this up. Remember, let's talk this safe zone. So the other part of this conversation, are we overvalued, is, again, as with the stock market, timing the real estate market is looking for the bottom is really a matter of luck, not skill. And it's kind of a fool's game, if you will. And, we talk about market cycle peaks, and we talk about a market cycle trough. Well, we've already identified in the data we went through that we had hit peak. And then the journey from peak to trough in San Antonio was about 10%. The journey from peak to trough in Williamson County was about 20%. And we've already seen in the data that the swing has come up. And for the consumer, and anybody, you don't see the change until after it's happened. And we call this gold starburst, the point of realization that the market has shifted. And yet we're at this point of realization, with all this space in between is the safe zone. Yeah, it's going to get heated up again at some point. It really hasn't yet. It's recovering. It's made the swing. And there's going to be another peak somewhere down the road. And there's going to be another trough sometimes down the road. And yet that 4% trend line keeps going. And so today, it's fair to say that we're clearly in the safe zone, and we're on the upside of the safe zone. And yet, even if we were to have a little economic blip and we saw a slide back, we would be still here at the bottom of the safe zone, or even maybe in the lucky zone down here. And so the conversation I would have is, do you sense that there's anything and everything that we've discussed much downside risk from here, given that we've already given 20% back in the case of Austin, 10% back in case of San Antonio? So even if we did give a little back, it'd be kind of swinging around down here, and we're clearly in the safe zone or lucky zone. Wouldn't you agree? And that would be my assessment. And I would use this graph to help them understand that. And now somebody that bought at the peak, that's the unlucky zone. And yet markets go through cycles. And even on the way down, if somebody bought, slightly before the trough hit, you were still in the safe zone, because as the swing comes back around, it's going to make that up rather quickly. And the 4% trend growth appreciation over time is going to make up for any minor ills that you might miss right now. So that would be the last part of this conversation, is go pull out the safe zone graph, And this is, by the way, comes from the Shift book. Go to the Shift book. I believe it's in the section on creating buyer urgency, and read up on that segment. So, and then of course, in our guide, we have a summary of everything that we cover, and we'll touch on the guide a little bit more in our next segment. In our next segment, we're going to pull it all together. You know, what is this conversation like? And by the way, also, I want you to get my book, Rescue Dogs in Real Estate. This is, if you like the idea of building a business built on relationships, built on attracting business versus chasing business, this business fable, 2.5 hour, 3 hour read will give you some insights into doing business that way and how to get out of chasing and get into attracting. And by the way, the greatest compliment you can give us on the book is a 5-star review on Amazon. You can find it at Amazon. Again, the title's Rescue Dogs in Real Estate. Also, check us out at neverendingreferrals.com. If you like these conversations or this way of doing business as a trusted advisor, we'd love to be your resource for you, and join our Never Ending Referrals community. And it's $39 a month, and you have us live 3 times a month, plus an online portal with all kinds of resources. But we'll see you for the next video. We're going to button this all up together, and see you then. Take care.